Okay guys, I'm stoked to do this video. We got some OG goodness here versus reissue. How close are they? Did Powell do a good job at mimicking the old school goodness with the reissues? And so that's what we're going to take a look at today. This is the Saiz Totem pole. Some people call it the feathers. But such a sick deck, such a sick graphic. So the graphic came out in 1989. Sean Cliver did the graphic for this one. And such a good job, so iconic. But yeah, let's just jump into this one. I was so stoked to get this one for Christmas because this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to show you guys the differences, and I wanted to find out myself what the differences were. And so we're going to take a look at that. And let me tell you, a little giveaway here. There are a few differences. So I'm going to start off. Let me just hold this guy. And I'm just going to read what Powell says about the reissues. And so actually, I'll provide a link. You can read exactly what they say as well. But for this deck, this is what they said in their little write-up about it, minus the fact that he was, Steve Saiz was the 4th Street Pro that they had brought on. Again, that it was originally released in 1989, art by Sean Cliver. But let's just see what they say here. So the Powell-Peralta reissue construction. Powell-Peralta reissue decks are close to reproductions of their 1980s counterparts. I want to emphasize the word close because it is not exact, and we'll get into that. But it does say featuring the original top and bottom graphics. Top, and bottoms. And top and bottom graphics, shape, and concave. And this is where we're going to have a little bit of a conversation. So right off the bat, a few things I want to point out just about this top graphic here. So in 1989, they actually went to the 4-color graphics. And so Powell just keeps getting a little bit more close to the original takes on the deck, because if you guys remember, if you look back at, well, if you have the reissues, take a look at them. The majority of them are 1 color. And so now they're starting to go to some 4-color graphics as well when they make sense with the OG boards, which is pretty rad. So we know that they were originally new school hole patterns on some of the reissues, and now the majority of them are the old school, which is cool. So they've done that. Now they've done this. It's going to be a little bit harder to tell if somebody's trying to scam us, you know, sell us a reissue and claim that it's an OG. There are still some giveaways, obviously. Here below the Powell, we see that just on top of the trucks there that it says copyright 2021 SOC. All right, guys, I'm going to clear my throat a couple times here. I know that drives people crazy, but literally, I've done this take twice, and this is going to be a longer video. So I've got like 45 minutes of talking straight to a camera to try to get this together for you guys. So every once in a while, I'm going to clear my voice. I apologize for that. But let's just keep moving on here. So I'm going to show you guys right away. The first thing I want to show you guys, and I hate doing this because I don't want to wreck the boards, but I'm more concerned about the OG. But look what happens. So when I actually take my hand away from the nose here and stop supporting it, see how that just falls down, the tail there? So push it up, falls down. And so, and also just the space, the gap in between, I don't know if you see the light popping through there, but there's a space in between. So I can tell you right away that the concave is different on the reissue versus the OG, and that the OG actually has a steeper kick to it because it's forcing that reissue down. So without sounding too ridiculous here, no pun intended, but they don't spoon. So get it, spoon nose, spoon here. So actually there's 2 versions of the OG. There's a spoon and kick. The one I have is the spoon, the reissue is the spoon. Anyways, they don't spoon perfectly here. They slide down because the kick is not the same on the OG as it is the reissue. And obviously we can see here too that the concave is not. So I'm going to now flip them, put the reissue on the bottom. Sorry, I'm going to get back in the frame here in a second. And then put the OG on top. And you can clearly see that there is a difference, right? So they don't sit perfectly, that's for darn sure. And so that nose has a steeper concave to it, I guess, a steeper, I don't want to say kick because it's not a kick nose, but it turns up more. And there's more concave you can see just around the entire front there. And then again at the back, that kick is steeper on the OG versus the reissue. And so they definitely did not get that exact. That's okay. This OG concave is awesome. This is what I love to skate. It's not extreme, but there's enough of it there that just makes it super fun to skate. Let's get a good look at that tail. And then this tail too, it almost has like a little bit of a valley in it, which is kind of nice. It really catches your foot nicely. And so let's just take again a look at that reissue. The reissue is quite a bit more flat, not near the concave. And same with the tail, it's just not as steep. And it doesn't have that same valley, or at least it's not as extreme or noticeable as the OG. But other than that, pretty good. While we have this up, let's take a look at the top graphic here. Powell-Peralta Skateboards, 7P, 7-ply, and then underneath it has Powell-Peralta Corp with the Roman numeral. Oh, the OG, blue banner. So in 1809, when they went to the full color, or 4-color, it was either a red banner or a blue banner. This is red, and this is kind of a different variant on the Ripper as well. This is the bronze wings or red wings. There are some other variants like your typical yellow or what have you, but this is the bronze one. It does have the 7P, does say 7-ply, excuse me, does not have the Powell-Peralta down here in the Roman numerals. But outside of that, there's a better look at it. So sick. There's this one. There we go. So killer. Now on the bottom, the difference that we can see here, and I'm just sorry, I gotta try to get this better. One of the things I noticed is that on the noses, you can see that the graphic goes closer to the tip of the nose on the OG than it does the reissue. And so when you look at the overall graphic and how it fits the board on the OG, it fills it out a bit more than the reissue. And so for whatever reason, again, when they did the screening process on this OG, they decided to fill the board a bit more. The reissue still looks really good and it's still full. It's just not to the same extent as the original OG graphic on the board. And so on that note, again, just a reminder that with the OGs, they actually screen the paint right onto the board. So they would do the different layers and processes to finally get you this full color. It's an awesome process to watch. If you haven't seen it, find a video. It's pretty cool to see the application. On the reissues, they do the same application, but they do it to a heat transfer first. And then they take that transfer and put the full transfer on this board. So it's like a big sticker on the board now versus directly screening the different colors onto the board in multiple applications. This is just like one big sticker going on. And so I talked about this in the video when I got this one, but with the reissues, if you see little pieces of stuff on it, you can actually just take your thumb and scroll it off because it's usually the little pieces from the holes here. They flake out like confetti and they just get stuck to different places on the board, so you can just take your nail and kind of roll it off. All right, so let's actually get into the specs. I have this one in my hand, so let's just go through the reissue specs. We talked about the heat transfer process. These are both 7-ply hard rock maple. The OG was made in the States. This one is now manufactured in Mexico. It's still designed in the US, but manufactured in Mexico. Sorry, guys. All right, so let's run through the deck shape. This one is, and if you look at the numbers up top, we've talked about this before. The last 3 digits here will give you the shape, which says 282. This one is 282. The concave on the reissue is SP3, which this could be as well. It's just that it is a little bit different, as we discussed. Now, in saying that, I did a post on Instagram the other day. Did a side-by-side with the hashtag Saiz Saturday, which was kind of cool because Steve reposted it, and then we had a little bit of a dialogue going on. And I mentioned to him just the difference in the concave that I was surprised by it. And he thought that maybe it was sometimes if you pull off the top of the rack versus the bottom of the rack, There could be some differences in, small differences in shape or in concaves and stuff. And so I went on to Facebook, had some conversations, and actually there's quite a few guys that have noticed the difference if they have an OG and a reissue, that the OGs are a little bit more aggressive in their concaves than the reissues. So I don't know why they've decided to tame it on the reissues, but they're definitely not the exact same. So the wheelbase on this one is measuring in between the trucks is 15 inches. The deck length is 30.81. The width, and again I'll have it up here, but it's 10 inches. The nose, so from the top of the trucks to the tip of the nose here, is 4.47. And the tail is 6.34. Trucks are old school hole pattern, which is pretty rad. Now I did manage to find an ad that was from the 80s, and I believe it was for the spoon and not the kick, because the measurements are almost identical to the reissue measurements. And just so you guys know, I've personally measured them, and they're so close. The wheelbase and everything is, it is so close. It's pretty awesome. But anyways, I'll pull up that ad and we'll just walk through these ones and then quickly compare them to the reissue numbers. But the length on this one is 31. The length on the reissue, it said 30.81. And so minusculely different. The width, 10.18, so 10 and 1/8 of an inch. And so the reissue says 10 inches. So I had initially thought when I was laying them down that this one might have been a hair wider, and so maybe it is that 1/8 of an inch, just a hair wider. The nose on this one is 4.5 inches. On the reissue, it was 4.47, so again, so close. On the tail here, we see 6.5 inches on the OG measurements, and on the deck tail on the reissue, it was 6.34. All right, guys, I don't know what else to say. I mean, other than the fact that this is such a sick deck, the Feathers Totem Pole, Saiz here, they've done such a good job, Powell, at getting close with those minor differences, just on the fact that the graphic isn't filling the board as much on the reissue versus the OG. What else? The concave is a little bit different. Outside of that, it is pretty close, so it's cool. I love the fact that they're doing this, again, because there's so many decks that are just too expensive for us to get our hands on, or they're just too hard to get our hands on. And so the fact that we have access to these boards and we can, they're not overly expensive. They keep raising the prices, which gets annoying. I guess that's inflation, though, we're seeing it in everything. But yeah, they keep raising the prices, but we can still take these and skate them and not feel too bad. If you're lucky enough to get your hands on a nice clean OG like this, that's going to be a little bit harder to skate. You're not going to feel, well, I don't know, maybe you will. I just don't feel as comfortable skating them because I don't have enough money to throw out just on, $5,000, $6,000, $1,500 boards to feel comfortable to go out and skate them. But I don't mind dropping, $100 and up to $150 type thing in Canada here for one of these guys. Outside of that, guys, hope you enjoyed it. Sorry it's taken so long, and sorry that my throat is a little bit messed up. My other takes, it actually sounded better, but there was just, again, some things that I missed that I didn't want to miss. I wanted to be sure that they were in here. So this is, once again, the Powell-Peralta Steve Saiz Totem Pole, or Feathers, depending on how you want to talk about it, and OG versus the reissue. All right, guys, thanks so much for your comments, for your likes. Please subscribe if you haven't yet. I would love to get to that 1,000 and at some point be able to do some giveaways. So please share, do all that good stuff. Thanks again for your support. Peace out. Cheers.